Hey, welcome back, Fishing on Northwest. Duane, Inglin, Kelly, Barnum in studio, and glad to be back in studio, Barnum, as we were out on the road for a bit and missed a few shows, a few weeks. But appreciate all you folks joining us this evening. Loren Culp, current police chief of the town of Republic and running for governor on the Republican ticket, is taking time this evening to spend it here with us at FHN, and hopefully we're not beating you up too bad.
Oh, no. It's good to be back with you. I love talking, hunting, and fishing.
Perfect. Well, we're going to do just that. So, as the governor of Washington State, you know, you kind of have an overseeing position in basically forming your Fish and Wildlife Commission, right? Mm-hmm. You basically appoint persons to those seats, and you have final say in them getting in there, and there's some criteria that those folks bring to the table that you have to kind of work your way through and decide if it's a good candidate or not to put into that seat. What would be some of the attributes you would look at for a candidate who's going to be representing all the different counties throughout Washington State, the 9 different prospective zones, of what makes that person a good candidate as a commissioner on that seat? Yeah.
Right. As a lot of your viewers probably know, the Fish and Wildlife Commission has a big hand in what happens with our Fish and Wildlife in the state.
Right.
The director is not appointed by the governor. You know, that department is under control of the Fish and Wildlife Commission.
Right.
And so those are very important appointees. Mm-hmm. And I would make sure if there were any openings that I appointed people who are really hunters and go fishing and have spent most of their life, good part of their life, in the outdoors.
Sure.
Not just as bird watchers, but as real hunters, real fishermen or women.
There's obviously a tremendous economic boost to the economy if we have a robust WDFW platform and plenty of opportunity for folks to get involved with out there. And I would have to assume you recognize that it is it's a good opportunity that this state is not maximizing, as in we should have a lot more money going back into the state via recreational folks getting out there and doing what it is we love to do. You know, what are some things you think maybe need to be changed to fully fund WDFW, to get them the money through legislation or whatever the process would be, because they continue to, we have all these different programs throughout the state, obviously, right? We're talking schools, healthcare, support programs, I mean, infrastructure, all these things. WDFW seems to be at the end of the line year in and year out, and has been since the downturn in the economy in 2008. They need to continue. They're told to maintain operations, but then it's like, well, we're not going to give you money to do so, but figure it out. What are some things you think need to change to allocate monies towards WDFW to give us an opportunity and get them back on par?
Well, first you need a person in the governor's seat who knows the difference between a white-tailed deer and an elephant.
Yeah, good point.
I don't think if he was in the field he would be able to identify either one.
Right.
So that's first of all. Leadership obviously needs to change. That's why I'm running for governor.
Right.
And you have to have it a priority. Right now it's not a priority, obviously. Jay Inslee doesn't hunt.
Right.
Doesn't fish, as far as I know.
No.
And so if you have people in leadership positions that it's not a priority, then it's going to just be put off in the corner. And hunters and fishermen are the greatest environmentalists there are.
Right.
You know, we hear about the environmentalist movement. Well, hunting and fishing has put $20 billion into habitat through the Roberts Pittman Act.
Sure.
Over the years.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And hunters and fishermen care about the environment because we are out in the environment. We live in the environment. So having people who have the priorities correct when it comes to that type of thing is very important. And I will bring that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's important to understand that WDFW, I mean, they just don't manage hunting and fishing. They manage endangered species. They manage all wildlife and, you know, wildlife habitat and restoration. And you think a party and a governor who is the champion of the environment that he claims to be would be a lot more apt to make sure the agency that's in charge of making sure our wildlife is happy and flourishing would be a champion of funding the department.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, it's confusing.
This state, with the resources that we have, you know, we have a number of rivers, lakes, we have the ocean, On one side, we have the Strait of Juan de Fuca, we have Puget Sound, and then all the rivers that come out of the mountains in between.
Yeah.
This should be a destination for people all across the United States and Canada to come to fish and hunt. But it's not, because it's been mismanaged for so many years. People that I know that can afford it leave this state and go to other states to hunt.
Right.
So like Idaho and Montana, by example, are some of the, you know, when you follow social media and you see all these folks posting pictures of their success, there are so many pictures inundated from Washingtonians who are the grip and grin with their kill from Idaho or Montana. Right. Millions of dollars are leaving our state.
They are.
Whereas it'll take a while to get hunting back to that caliber, but you know, as far as our fisheries and all those areas you just mentioned, I mean, I look at it, say Puget Sound, the ocean fisheries, you have Puget Sound, Willapa, Grace Harbor, Columbia Basin. Those should all be destination fisheries if they're managed right. And the fact is, they've cut the monies for WDFW. They've cut the hatchery programs. They've been inundated with all these private groups that come in and slap lawsuits against WDFW in the state of Washington. It makes it very hard to move forward in exercising at full capacity to provide programs and opportunity for the population boom we're experiencing, right? So what's the mechanism to make that more of a priority? Awareness? Make sure that it's like on the radar, not just like, oh yeah, oh by the way, we gotta pick up that scrap there on the floor of WDFW and throw them a bone. I mean, to me it sounds like you
throw another culvert in on the road and we're going to call her good.
Right.
You know, that's not what needs to be done, and it's going to take leadership from the top.
So recognizing it as a priority and secure the funding, right?
Yep.
And work with legislation. We had that conversation where we recognize that and all these other programs that dig into the state's budget, you know, it's a dollar out, it's a dollar gone. In WDFW, an opportunity, and with recreational fishing and hunting, it's a dollar out, it's $3.40 back into the economy. I think you'd be hard pressed as governor to find anything else in your line items of budget to find that type of kickback into the economy on all these other programs. So we have been waiting for somebody who would recognize WDFW and running it efficiently, fully funded, to make sure they can introduce the programs that they're falling way behind on to keep up with the demands. Nobody is willing to sit down and have that conversation to make it a priority. Sounds to me like you recognize the importance of that and are willing to make that a priority.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm a lifelong resident of Washington State. I've lived in Chimacum and Elma, Olympia, and Republic, and I've hunted all my life. I shot my first deer when I was 8.
Yeah.
I shot my first elk when I was 12.
Right.
And that's a good, clean food that goes in the freezer.
Yep.
We just had some of it tonight.
We did
and
have
there's
some.
nothing better. You know where your food comes from
Exactly.
when you take a hands-on approach and take care of it that way.
Yep.
Same with fish.
Yep.
And it just needs to be made a priority. And I will make it a priority.
Fantastic.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about, as you talk more about hunting and even fishing, let's talk a little bit about issues that have plagued kind of that entire industry over the last couple of years with land access. We have more and more large private timber companies locking up their land, charging access fees. We have Discover passes. We have, you know, landlocked state lands, landlocked national forest lands that we need access through private to get to those areas, and we're not getting that access. You know, what can you do as governor, or what would be a plan for you to help hunters and fishermen and even outdoor recreators of all kinds, hikers, whatever, to gain access to these lands again?
Right. Well, that's a big shame, that what's been going on not only on our state lands, but on the federal lands. They've been blocking off road access since the 90s,
right.
The early 90s. When I was working construction, running my own business around Olympia, almost every weekend, my boys and I would take our dogs and we'd go out the Olympic Peninsula, out by Shelton, and we would go hunting. And it seemed like every weekend there was a new road being dug out or gated and access cut off. And that not only keeps the citizens off of our land, our land, right? It's our land. It's not the government's land.
Right.
It's the citizens, because we are the government. It keeps us out, but it also, when there's a catastrophic wildfire, there's no access. They've some of those roads they've completely taken out.
Right.
Not just dug them out or gated them. They've taken them completely out. So there's no way to get in to fight these fires.
Yeah.
And so they just keep on burning.
Right.
So it's not only the access, but it's for the citizens. but it's fighting wildfires as well.
Right.
That's a great segue into forestry management. I know you have an issue with the way our forests have been managed for a number of years now, and the upgrowth and undergrowth of out of control levels. And when these fires take off, they're completely out of control. And it's not just like 1 or 2 seasons. This has become a repetitive annual event here in Washington, not just on the east side, but now we're seeing it on the west side of the North Cascades and whatnot. I don't see a plan. I mean, Hillary has put some information out there that she's planning to move forward with some forestry management stuff. I just don't see a whole lot of things happening in the very near future on forestry management, unless I'm missing the boat, and maybe somebody will correct me. But would you have a plan to make that also a priority? Because managing the forest is every bit as a priority as managing for clean water and managing our fisheries and waterways.
I would ask people, when is the last time you saw a catastrophic wildfire on timber company property?
That's a valid point, yeah.
I don't know of anyone ever. They manage their forest.
Right.
They clean it up, they thin it, and they log it.
Yep.
It's a renewable resource.
Right.
And they manage it like a farm.
Yeah.
But the state doesn't.
Right.
The dead and dying diseased trees are just left to rot.
It's just
And
fire tinder.
It's fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and instead of spending millions and millions of dollars every year to fight these catastrophic wildfires, and there's human life lost.
Sure.
There's homes lost.
Yep.
Why don't we take that money that we spend millions of dollars and then also have to replace these buildings, people have to rebuild.
Right.
Why don't we take those millions of dollars, instead of using it as a reactionary tool, why don't we go in and manage our forests, especially where private and public land meet, and manage that
instead be proactive, right?
Instead of out in the middle where nobody's going to be even bothered, but put that money where homes could be lost, lives could be lost, and have a public-private partnership in some areas to get the forest managed, thinned, and clean up the carbon off of the forest floor.
Create that buffer.
Exactly.
Right? Create that buffer.
It's a win-win because you curb wildfire, you take public safety, but imagine how many jobs you're going to create back in the rural areas. If you kick up your timber industry again like it used to be back in the 60s and 70s when it was booming. And we have millions and millions of houses in America that need built with this population boom, and we're not harvesting a renewable resource that's right in front of us to build those houses, which will create jobs and provide millions of dollars at economy. I mean,
and we're seeing a change in that coming from the federal level.
Yeah.
Over in Ferry County, there's a lot of federal land, federal national forests, and they're logging it now. They're thinning it. Yep.
Yeah.
They're thinning it, and not only are they thinning it, but they're going in afterwards and they're cleaning up all of the undergrowth, the dead and dying pieces.
Yeah.
In order to prevent these catastrophic wildfires. And Jay Inslee will tell you it's because of global climate change. It is not. Fires burn, they start with lightning. A lot of times they start from humans a lot of times. And if you have less fuel on the ground and in the trees, then it's not going to be such a catastrophic fire.
Right.
It's just common sense.
Back a number of years when I was logging, we were doing selective cut, thinning jobs for private timber companies, Plum Creek and a handful of others. We were doing thinning jobs because it was exactly for that. It was fire prevention. It was for the health of the forest. You get better product growing out of the trees that remain when you give them a spacing. It's just good common sense forestry management. And for whatever reason, state lands have just been kind of pushed off, and we don't have budget. We don't have time. They don't have budget because they don't make budget. They don't make it a priority, and it's reactionary versus doing it preventative. So I'm glad to hear you recognize that issue, and moving forward is something that definitely needs to happen. What's your thoughts about? I forget the statistic. There's a number out there. Maybe we'll look it up. But there is a number of enforcement officers working under WDFW. It's not very many. And there are a couple enforcement officers in some of these larger counties, especially on the east side, that have a whole lot of real estate to cover. And when it gets to hunting season and opportunities for folks to be out there in the woods and toting guns and things, there's a lot of illegal activity going on in our state relative to poaching, wild game, and of course fishing and whatnot. There's just no enforcement. What is the cure to ensuring that we can provide more enforcement officers under the WDFW umbrella to give them the tools they need to make sure that things are going, in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. I know wildlife officers, and I've worked with them. They are good people, good
Right.
family people,
Yep.
and they care about our wildlife
Right.
and our game. And it's their job to oversee, the harvest, make sure people aren't taking more than they're supposed to.
Right.
We definitely need more. I know we have one over there in the corner of the state, and he's all over the place.
Sure.
I mean, we hardly even see him because
Yeah.
he's just all over the place all the time.
Yep.
So definitely it needs to be stepped up.
Well, I guess it's to me it's one of those things that I guess you got to make it a priority, and recognize that we've been asking for more enforcement for years on all facets of recreating in the outdoors, and it's not WDFW's fault. They don't have the money in the budget to bring on more folks.
Right,
I guess it comes back to funding.
That's the answer. They need to be funded.
Right.
The number is 140
For the state.
for the state.
Yeah. 140 for the state. Yeah. I was thinking it was like 127, but 140. It's not very many out there.
Right.
When the state is open for hunting, that's a lot of geography to cover, right? There's a lot of miles to cover. And so I would hope, as governor, you recognize the importance of bringing on more enforcement. I mean, these are sworn officers, right?
Yes.
The WDFW enforcement used to be, they're wildlife enforcement. They are sworn officers, right?
They're certified peace officers. with
Peace
the state of
officer,
Washington.
yep, exactly. So,
Just like a police officer or deputy sheriff.
right, yep, sworn peace officer. They go through academy, they go through the whole deal as part of their training. So, okay, real good. Much more to get through. We're gonna step a little bit out of talking wildlife management, fisheries, and hunting and those types of things. Just for a little bit here, we do have to talk about homeless crisis, drug epidemic, and a handful of other things going on under the watch of our current governor that's just completely gone out of control here in the state of Washington throughout a number of cities that are like on the radar at the national level, which is very embarrassing to say the least. You have some pretty sound advice and some good plans, I think, how to deal with homeless and opioid epidemic and stuff. So don't go anywhere. Jump out for a couple-minute break here. We come back, more with Loren Culp. We're going to tackle this homeless issue and probably going to open your eyes as to what the actual solution would be when we're dealing with homeless and drug epidemic here in the state of Washington. We'll be right back here on FHN.